Um, Hi everyone, my name is Mina Tolu. I'm a candidate for Alternativa Democratica, the Green Party, for the European Parliament elections. And I've been asked to choose one candidate to have a talk with today, and I've decided to invite Josianne Cutajar.
Thank you for the invite, Mina. It's my pleasure.
Yes, it's up to us how this discussion goes. And so we've come up with a few topics beforehand, actually. And right before the recording started, we were talking a bit about the kind of barriers to politics and how we started our political journeys. Because I think there's something that people should know, is that we're the two youngest candidates. Yes. In Malta, contesting the European Parliament elections. I'm 27 years old, Josianne is 29 years old. And so that's actually very exciting for me to be having this chat with the other young candidate for the European Parliament elections. So my first question to you is, what barriers do you feel you have faced to coming onto this journey as a candidate?
So politics, sometimes when you're start thinking of entering into politics, you do find barriers in general, first of all, because sometimes it's associated as not being clean. And people come up to you and tell you, look, you shouldn't go into politics. But I've always been determined to bring about change effectively. I've been a person from a very young age who believed that when I want to change something, I need to get actively involved and do my part. Otherwise, it's useless speaking without not doing my part actively. So that's the first thing and the first barrier I had to face. A barrier which is there for everyone in general.
I think so. I like to reflect on that barrier in terms of, I call it the desirability of politics. How desirable is it actually? And in Malta, I see much less than elsewhere. And I only started to consider politics as something that I could do and as a journey I could undertake when I lived away from Malta for a while. And I kind of started to observe also Maltese politics from a distance, but also local politics where I was, and see that it is absolutely a tool for change.
Yes.
And it can be used for that. And if I want to be a change maker, I can also be doing that within a political structure and a political party.
It's perfectly true, and we should also appeal to the youths who got their first-time votes to go out and vote. It's important. It's a democratic exercise, and we want everyone on board.
Yeah, Vote 16 is so exciting. Malta is one of the few countries now in the European Union who will have 16-year-olds voting for the European Parliament elections.
We're lucky.
Yes, I think it's so cool.
It's a strong trust in our youths.
Yeah.
And I do urge all youths and all citizens to exercise their vote. That's important. And speaking of barriers, I also sometimes find barriers in the sense that the mentality sometimes is still inclined that it's easier for men to be in politics than women. And women sometimes get to be asked questions. So, for example, they ask me, are you married? Do you have kids? It doesn't necessarily mean that they don't ask men, but I see it more oftenly asked towards women. I still think that we still need to work more. We've already moved a lot.
Do you get a lot of these questions on the campaign trail? Do you get a lot of people asking you, how are you going to do this work? Are you married? Do you have kids? Do they ask you these things?
They do sometimes, not always, but they do sometimes. And I'm aware that women face a more difficult situation to get through to politics. And the most important thing I believe in is education, as always. It's always in the sense that someone who knows me well knows that I prioritize education a lot if we want to bring about a change in our culture. So I do think that we've moved positive steps forward in the sense of equality in general, even between the sexes. But I do feel that we still need to work more. So it's good to have it on paper, but it's good also to have it fully implemented in reality. And education helps a lot there, as does positive measures.
Okay, I'm going to stop you for a second and go back a few seconds to some specific word you said, which was equality between the sexes.
Yes.
Now, I very much believe in there being many genders, in fact, and so when we have to be speaking about equality, we need to be looking at this approach of
gender equality.
And not equality between sexes. So that was just to bring about that point from my end. Have you
full
had
support towards gender equality?
okay,
from my
just
end. Yes, yes.
just to broaden that conversation as well. Yes, absolutely, equality between men and women. There need to be better structures in place to support women getting into politics and also into other areas, doing. But however, we should be looking at gender, not just at this
That's
whole
true.
sex.
And in that respect, it's a positive move forward also that this government has introduced the Istanbul Convention and its principles, and has focused on gender-based violence. So that's a very positive step forward, something which should lead the way in other circumstances also. Because when we speak of, when we speak of equality, we need to speak of equality not only between men and women, between the respective genders, between the different sectors of society. So everyone, there are some sectors which do face some barriers naturally. For example, people with different abilities. But that doesn't mean that we don't work hard towards facilitating. So that's important too. I do hate to see people suffering. Whether it's because of a mentality, because of a legal barrier, or any other barrier. So I do believe in the importance of bringing about change for people to suffer less.
I think, we need both the law and the education. So, for example, something I reflect on a lot as an LGBTIQ person, I am able to be in politics nowadays as myself. I have an X on my gender, on my ID card and everything. I am able to do that because we have the legal structure in place that offers me those protections. And that opens up more opportunities to me. That could be one of the barriers to people, for example, trying out something like politics. So once you have a sort of legal base in place, then other people can have more opportunities and more protections against discrimination, for example, which is one of my main drivers in my politics. I do believe very much that that there are a lot of second-class citizens still around Europe, also in Malta, and we do need to be having the legal structure in place to support in order for everyone to have equal opportunities. It's about equity.
Yes, and speaking about law does help to bring about a culture change. So yes, law and education along with each other. I do congratulate you also as a role model towards others. And I thank you for speaking about the sector so that other persons who may be hesitant to come forward, you're a role model towards them.
I think we're both role models in our own way, actually, because it is very challenging to see young people who are not men in politics.
That's
actually. True. I do love talking about barriers, but maybe we shouldn't only focus on that. Do you have a question for me?
Just one last thing to close off the subject. I also, if I'll get elected, I wish to work hard towards ensuring more rights for the LGBTIQ community, not only in Malta, because in Malta we both agree that we've moved.
We're quite good now.
Forward, and that's also recognized by international organizations. That's something very positive. But I wish I am a European citizen. We are both, and we wish to see that change also implemented in other member states so that LGBTIQ persons throughout Europe will have more synergetic rights.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that is for me frustrating and worrying is the freedom of movement concept, right? I mean, I think we believe that is very much central to Europe and the EU. But let's take a specific example. For example, if you have a rainbow family, right? Meaning, say, two men married to each other and they have a family and they can technically, as European citizens, they can move to another EU country for work. But if that EU country does not recognize their marriage, they might actually face a lot more barriers, right? And so I think we need to be looking at those areas. And I'd be very glad to also work alongside you on these areas. I mean, it would be very cool. Do you have a question for me?
So we're speaking about reform of positive measures. What do you think about the proposed reform?
Okay. I was upset because of the focus on sex and that the definition of gender used within this document is not the definition of gender that is used in the GGESC law, which is the Gender Identity, Gender Expression and Sex Characteristics law that we have in Malta since 2015. So I was hoping that that document would reflect the very broad understanding of gender that our legal gender recognition laws are having. So on that aspect, I was rather disappointed. Another thing is the fact that it's based very much on a two-party system. So we're talking about barriers. I'm coming from a smaller party. There are a lot of smaller parties. It is very hard for us to break into, to break into the political structure that we have at the moment, and to have measures that are only positive measures for the two very big parties is actually quite worrying.
The reform, however, does not apply. The suggested proposals will not apply in the case that there will be a three-party system in Parliament. So there will have to be a different mechanism for that.
But the assumption is that there would be a two-party system. That's what is read from the document.
That's what's at present. But I am positive about the fact that we've started, that we have a base. And I'm sure that in the future, the fruit from this document and the fruit from these proposals will come across. It doesn't mean that there won't be amendments in the future, but structures, but...
To be clear, I believe in positive measures. They're short-term initiatives that can bring out in the long term a lot of good, actually. We do need to be having more equal gender representation in the Parliament, and positive measures can be a way to get us there.
Yes, and positive measures rather than quotas.
Yes, and affirmative action, and also when it comes to other groups, perhaps. But I think this is also work that the parties need to undertake internally, and speaking also as someone from the Green Party, this is something that we need to be working on as well. Again, it's hard work, it's a lot of groundwork, but we should be doing it, and actually we should be pushing for it. So I'm so in favor of that document being in there. Some of the reflections within the document itself are a bit disappointing, and I don't think reach far enough.
What about the gender-based violence?
Well, I think it's fantastic that the Istanbul Convention has been ratified by Malta. I mean, this is really important to me. And it's, again, as we were saying before, when it comes to gender-based violence, there's violence against women, there's also violence against trans people. And I have worked in this area with Transgender Europe for the past 3 years. And through our research, we see that the violence against trans people, this anti-trans violence, is happening particularly on trans women, and across Europe as well. And the violence stems from harassment and hate speech, and goes all the way to murder. I mean, it's good to be included in the gender-based violence laws and discourse, because maybe we can start to tackle that also on a broader scale.
Fully agreed.
That's good.
I love speaking about the subject, not because it's a subject which is positive, but we have to raise more awareness, and we need to make people more conscious of the symptoms, so that even when they start seeing those symptoms, they will go and seek help. So I believe in that a lot, and I also believe in economic independence, because it's harder for a person in a relationship to get out of it if he, she, or they are economically independent upon the other partner. Yes. So that's even important.
I mean, definitely, and I think one thing that is good that we hear more and more often is that when violence is happening, particularly domestic violence, or violence against women is happening, that's usually happening at the home. It's domestic violence, it's from someone that you might know. And it is very important to have now policies in place to support people to become more dependent and get away from that.
It's true. So the free childcare center for all has helped in this regard. And I believe in positive measures, once again, to help everyone who would like to go out and work, because that helps. Economic independence helps a lot, but I do.
I mean, sometimes it's really worrying and concerning to me that it's 2019 and we are still talking
speaking
about
about it.
economic
Yes,
independence,
yes,
a topic that feminists have been talking about for decades.
That's
and
true.
it is really concerning. And to me, I don't know, do you identify as a feminist?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So as feminists, I mean, it's tough to me to then compare to, I do feel in this area in Malta, I do feel a lot the strength of, let's say, the patriarchy. I feel very much the, again, talking about those barriers, that you internalize a lot of those stereotypes against women, for example. You internalize certain things, and it keeps you from doing stuff and from achieving and succeeding and taking hold of opportunities. I think there's a change, especially in our generation, and we're pushing for more change, which is fantastic.
That our future generations will not be speaking about the same barriers we're speaking today. So that's what we aim and we will work for, I'm sure. And another topic which is at heart is the importance of having more work-life balance. We've become such a societies, different societies going around busily.
Okay, because I have my ideas on work-life balance and how we can achieve that. What are yours first?
First of all, I do believe that all of us should become aware of the importance of balance, because we're so caught up with work sometimes, myself included, that we do tend to forget ourselves and those around us, in the sense that we don't give maybe particular attention to ourselves, and we underestimate the importance of resting and of taking frequent breaks. So that's first and foremost the importance of being conscious.
But one reason why people might not be resting is because the minimum wage is not enough to support them.
So as regards the minimum wage, I've spoken also recently that this government has already taken some steps forward. So we had a raise in the minimum wage, and we do have a permanent mechanism which will see the minimum wage increasing. Now, I do believe that apart from the wage, we should look at also the income of the family.
Yeah.
So that's something that if we have, apart from the wage, we do have other social benefits or benefits which guarantee or help in helping the family. That would also help. So if it's free MedSec or free child transport, that does help, even the free childcare center. But also, it's also, I think that we need to focus here also on the importance of mental health, and also the importance of having also better open spaces around, because that's important also.
Agreed. So, couple of points on this. Absolutely, we need a minimum income, actually, I think, and it's not only for families, but it's to support individuals and people in order to live their best lives. As Greens, one of the proposals is actually to start trialing universal basic income to allow the freedom actually and the creativity for people to do what they really feel they need to be doing and how they can be best contributing to society. It's not always tied to for-profit work within industries, or also. So absolutely, minimum income, fantastic. When it comes to the open spaces, yes, I think it's good for us to reflect. Yes, we can say open spaces are good for mental health. Let's reflect on why. Actually, there's something about that sense of quiet, that peace that you might get.
I'm a good citizen.
Yeah, I mean,
I live partly in Malta and partly in Gozo. So one of my first shocks which I had to encounter is, as a student, I was 17, turning on 18 years of age when I entered university, having to get used to living in MC now.
Yes, which is chaotic, of course, as you know.
Yes.
So yes, but sometimes I mention this. I do mention this a lot, like how open space might impact a person's mental health, and people will be like, oh, why? I think I think we need to be clear about the benefits, about the clean air, about the peace and the quiet, to kind of take yourself away from the rush even of the traffic, for example, or this stress of work, to switch off for a while, this right to disconnect that has been mentioned by quite a few people also in the Labour Party, this right to disconnect from work and to just reconnect with yourself. I mean, maybe I start to sound like a hippie, but these are things that I also very much believe in. But of course, you cannot really have, I mean, nature in itself has always been an open space, right? And
Yes.
we have humans have through our development kind of contributed to creating, and also in Malta we see this kind of urban spaces that are not always actually good contributors to good mental health. So it would be good to see sustainable development and urban development that keeps in mind also the mental health of
And
communities.
it's also having spaces where not only the nature itself, but also spaces where people can go and have picnics, can go and camp, can go and do recreational activities.
Yeah.
So, for example, in Gozo, I get to the beach from home in 5 minutes by car. So that's quite fantastic.
Why do you go by car?
Yes, because I don't have time to go by walk, which is more beneficial to my health, but
would
I'm
be.
always in a rush, so...
Okay, so you should be calming down. I mean, that's one thing, is why are we always in a rush?
That's true, that's true.
One of the green proposals when it comes to work, around work, is actually, we need to be looking at reducing working hours. A 40-hour work week is, for many people, detrimental to their health.
Yes, it may be, it may be.
And
the point I was also making is that it's important to have the spaces. So nature by itself, that's fine, that's great. I love going to the beach in summer.
yes,
I find myself relaxing most, either when I'm walking or walking, not in...
not in MC, the valley or something like
amongst
this. But,
buildings, but when walking amongst nature and in the fields.
Yeah.
And also when I go to the beach, I tend to fall very quiet.
I mean,
because that's relaxing a lot.
I think for us Maltese and Gozatins, actually being by the beach and being by the sea and having access to the coast,
We're
actually,
lucky, yes.
Yes, but the access to the coast isn't what it used to be, and there's a lot of citizens around Malta who have started the petitions to have more access to the coast, and I think it is really important to ensure access to the coast, and as a right, actually, as the sea is so important to us. Clean sea is so important to us. I mean,
should come over to Gozo. We have lovely spots there.
Yes, fair enough. Perhaps maybe some cleaner beaches. I mean, but the sea has no borders. If there's plastic in the sea being thrown somewhere in Estonia, it might eventually reach us here in Malta.
And
actually,
we should always campaign towards more cleanliness, because it hurts that people.
But do you think that's enough?
leave their homes spick and span, and then you see someone littering.
Okay, we don't have much time left, perhaps, but do you think it's enough, that individual measure? Don't you think more needs to be done? Do you think there needs to be... I don't think individual measures are enough. I think, honestly, we need to change the whole consumer model.
Okay, so consumer
You're very
model
good.
along with individual habits. Because I do believe, so the law and enforcement changes the attitudes of people by force, but the best form of change is when it comes from the willingness of each person to bring about a positive change. So I think both of them should go along with each other. I always believe that we have to educate the individual as well as have changes in place by law. So both along with each other. So the time is running out.
Okay. Yeah, so I will just add very quickly on that point. I do think we need to be targeting yes. This kind of we need to start shifting to a circular economy where we don't only use and waste and over waste, but we need to start rethinking the way we create products.
We need to recycle more, even personally.
It's not only about recycling, but okay.
But one of them, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's it.
Good luck, and thank you.
Okay.
European elections 2019. Red, blue, or better, something new? Watch our weekly news show on Saturdays, the 4MALTA MEP candidate talks, and our election special on 25th May. Like our channel and vote for Malta.